These black Jews were active in commerce, eager to learn, and possessed much knowledge of Portuguese history and law. In their commercial enterprises, these Jews penetrated inland hundreds of miles from the coast and were known also as clerks and writers. Livingstone considered these Jews to be deportees from Portugal. St. Paul de Loanda began, like St. Thomas, and a penal colony for the punishment of criminals. In Portugal, many of these black Jews were considered criminals. Also, many of these black Jews of the land of Angola, it is said, came from St. Thomas Island. All available evidence indicates that the Jews of west of the Angola coast were Portuguese Jewish outcasts. Many black Jews were considered inland and along the coast of Angola, the Congo, and Gabon. Frederick Ratzel writes that the tribes of the Luango coast and the Cabina north of the Congo River were once Christianized. Ratzel observed a ceremony of baptism followed by circumcision. However, these tribes were Jewish in origin. The Christianity Ratzel saw among them was a disguise. The circumcision practiced among them is of Jewish deviation. The Christians in Portugal did not practice circumcision. In fact, Cicero wrote that circumcision among the Jews in Portugal was practically an impossibility, for its discovery was equal to a death sentence. Gabe wrote concerning the Mabnumba Jews of the Luango coast. It seems that the Mubambu may have been the remnant of a much more numerous Judaism tribe that was vigorously assailed by Portuguese missionaries. The Abbé Boyart records that nominal Christians, secret Jews, once numbered hundreds of thousands. Whenever the Jews were in Spain, Portugal, or their colonial possessions, they disguised themselves as Christians in outward form but practiced Judaism in secret. Many of these new Christians rights better than the old white Christians. In the year 1547, the Papal Office authorized and established the system of the Inquisition of Portugal. The word Inquisition means inquiry or investigations. The Inquisitions consisted of a tribunal of religious judges. Its purpose was to investigate and purge out heretical Christians, people who questioned certain Christian principles. Although some white Portuguese Christians suffered at the hands of the Inquisition, this system was mainly directed against the new Christians, hence the secret black Jews. The Inquisitions were persistent, gruesome, and ruthless in totality of their procedures. They interfered in the private affairs of the individuals. They intimidated and coerced individuals to inform on their neighbors. They employed a wide variety of continuous horrendous tortures, including public shows of burning human beings at the stake, and in order to satisfy their desires for the punishment of heretics, they sought not only the living but also the dead. Garcia de Ortega, a Jew of Portugal, was discovered to have been a secret Jew. His body was dug up out of his grave and burned by the Inquisitions. In another case, a Jewish woman by the name of Elvira del Campo was indicted and tortured for 2 years. In another case, a Jewish woman by the name of Elvira del Campo was indicted and tortured for 2 years in order to elicit a confession from her. The charges against her was not eating pork and not putting on clean linen on Saturdays. According to this woman, these charges were not heretical practices. She wanted to be clean, and pork made her sick. Whenever the Christian Jews could escape from Spain and Portugal beyond the reach of the Inquisition, they threw off the guise of Christianity and practiced Judaism openly, as they did in Turkey. Moreover, the unfortunate new Christians in Portuguese possessions in West Africa, India, and elsewhere could not throw all the disguise of Christianity, couldn't throw it all off. The Inquisition even dispatched its Inquisition agents to the Canary Islands, Madeira, Guinea, India, South America, St. Thomas, and Angola in order to search out secret Jews from 1561 to 1623. And about 38 individuals were tried. Many of them were Christian Jews of St. Thomas Island. They were charged with maintaining Jewish principles. Cecil Roth wrote that Christian Jews immigrated to the Portuguese colony of Angola of West Africa, where agents of Inquisition were sent to burn them out in 1626. Now, we can understand why writers like Friedrich Ratzel considered the tribes along the Loango and the Cabina Coast Christians. These Jews had to maintain a Christian guise, and particularly so in the presence of white people. Any European could have been an agent of Inquisition. It is certain that many black Jews of Portugal, St. Thomas, and Angola who became victims of the Inquisition and Portuguese persecution were sold in slave trade. This Atlantic slave trade lasted more than 400 years, from 1444 to about 1880 in some parts of South America. Some scholars have located black Jews within the entire Niger River Bend. The countries in this territory that have contained black African Jews include the following: Upper Volta, Ivory Coast, Ghana, Togo, Dahomey, and Nigeria. Joseph Dupuis, concerning the Jews in 1824, says, "The lands occupied by these people cover a wide extent between Messina and Kabe. Messina is located in southern Mali inside the Niger River Bend, and Kabe is found in the southern part of the Ivory Coast. Among the Ashantis of the Gold Coast are found Jews who observe many Hebrew customs. They don't light on Saturday, but they rest. They celebrate the New Year of the Jews, which occurs in September or early October. They use the word Amen at the end of their hymn of thanksgiving. Like the Hebrews of old, they marry in their tribe only. They perform cross-cousin marriages. These Ashanti Jews also observe the laws of uncleanliness after childbirth, purification ceremony of the 40th day, the menstrual seclusion law, and ceremonial ablutions. The Ashanti Jews have a breastplate like a high priest in ancient Israel, and it is divided into 12 parts, representing the 12 tribes of Israel. Also, they have a misnafet, or headdress, with its gold disc in front, which in ancient Israel bore an inscription, "Holy unto the Lord." Dr. J. Kripal reported in 1926 that there existed a large Hebrew community of black Jews in the interior of Dahomey, West Africa. The Hebrews have their own central temple where they sacrifice animals. In their temple, I found many laws engraved on tablets which are attached to the temple walls. They have a high priest with a large number of priestly families whose members walk from the house, rendering educational and religious instructions to each family of the community. Moreover, these Jews have their own Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, some call it the Pentateuch, written on old parchment in Hebrew letters, but they have no other books. What little Judaism they possessed was transmitted to them from their ancestors. Dr. Kripal says that they observed the Sabbath and other Jewish customs despite the pressures from their pagan environment. There are black Jews in southern Nigeria who call themselves Ino Yokwam, or strange people by the native Africans, but these black Jews call themselves by the Hebrew name Benai, Ephraim, or sons of Ephraim. These Jews claim that their ancestors immigrated from Morocco, a fact which Dahomey says is supported by their language and mixture of Hebrew Arabic and local Negro speech. Nevertheless, most of their language is similar to the black Yorubas around them. The Yorubas have influenced these Jews to a great extent in their external social life. It is said that the crocodile is a sacred animal for all. The customary practices of the Yorubas appear to be the same for the Jews. The assertion of these Yoruba Jews is that their ancestors were driven from locality to locality by Muslim persecution. They did not find rest even when they arrived in Timbuktu. Surely the prophecy has been fulfilled, and amongst these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a troubling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. These Yoruba Jews lived in the Ondo district. When Gabe wrote in 1930, the district is 900 miles southeast of Timbuktu. When Gabe wrote, they numbered about 2,000 people in 20 small hamlets. Pertaining to their Hebrew political structure and culture, they have 7 hereditary heads of the community. Their leadership is that of a priesthood. They are known to have copies of portions of the Torah preserved in a most holy place. However, their social life is not Torah controlled like many of the Hebrews' cultural traits among the Ashanti Jews. These black Jews observe certain Jewish customs, among which are the great holy days. In almost every way, these black Jews are like the Yorubas and are hardly distinguishable from them except from some outstanding Hebrew observances. One of the most notable among these black Jews was a young man named Bata Kundai Amgoza Ibn Lobagola, who was taken from Wadai Dahomey to Scotland. After he had received 4 years of the white man's education, he returned to his home in Africa. Dr. Alan Gabe postulates the position that black Jews were on the West African coast from Senegal to Angola, and the Jews, were driven to this area from the central Sudan by Muslim propagandism. Having a knowledge of the black Jews in the United States, Dr. Gabe arrived at this conclusion. These facts have peculiar significance, and the presence of Judaism among American Negroes is to be considered. Hundreds of thousands of slaves were brought to America from this Western Africa during the days of the Atlantic traffic, beginning nearly 400 years ago. How much more of Judaism survived among Western African Negroes earlier during that time? As persecuted communities, they were rather more endangered than other Negroes of being raided by war parties and sold as slaves. It may be considered certain that many partially Judaized Negroes were among the slaves that was brought to America. How many of them is still a number? How many of them still might hold some Jewish customs here is another question. Before Dr. Gabe published his book, The Lost Tribes, A Myth, Rabbi Matthew organized a Hebrew congregation in 1918 and proclaimed that the black people of the United States and the West Indies are the original black Hebrews. There are hundreds of thousands of black African Hebrews scattered throughout the United States, not only in the urban areas, but also in the rural communities of this nation. With the revelation of the ample historical evidence, the authenticity of these black Hebrews can no longer be questioned. However, in regard to the purity of their Judaism among some of these Jews, that is another issue. According to a biblical prophecy, the black Hebrews were supposed to have gone into slavery and captivity. Thus we read the old prophet Jeremiah saying, Judah is gone into captivity because of affliction, and because of great servitude. She dwelleth among the heathen. She findeth no rest. All of her persecutors overtook her between the straits. Prophecy is similar to history in one respect. That is, it repeats itself. Duality in prophecy has been recognized by many scholars. As the historical evidence indicate, the black Hebrews were snatched from the west coast of Africa and sold into captivity. Jeremiah says again, For lo, the days come, said the Lord, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, said the Lord, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and I will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more make him serve, but they shall serve the Lord their God, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore fearest thou not, O my servant Jacob, said the Lord, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity, and Jacob shall return, and shall be at rest and tranquil, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with thee, said the Lord, to have saved thee. Though I make a full end of all nations whither I have scattered thee, yet I will not make thee a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. The valley of the dry bones spoken of by the prophet Ezekiel represents the nations that hold back the black Hebrews under slavery and oppression, and the dry bones represent the black Hebrews, Ezekiel says. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived, and they stood up upon their feet, an exceedingly great army. Then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they say, our bones are dried, and our hope is lost. We are cut off. Therefore prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will open your graves, and cause you to come up out of your graves, and bring you into the land of Israel. The prophet Ezekiel calls the country wherein the black Hebrews are oppressed graves. And you shall know what I am, said the Lord, when I have opened your graves, O my people, and brought you out of your graves, and you shall put my spirit in you, and ye shall live, and I shall place you in your own land. Then shall ye know that I, the Lord, have spoken it and performed it, saith the Lord. At this time I am writing these pages, Reverend Ralph Abernathy is traveling around the country telling American people, I am going to Washington to tell the pharaohs to let my people go. As it was with the pharaoh of the ancient Egypt, so it is unlikely that the leaders in Washington will concede to the demands of the poor people's march. Considering all the rampant violence in the United States, there are many indications that the march on Washington will erupt into violence. The power structure concedes nothing without a demand. When the government refuses to effect reforms and to implement justice, the people lose respect for the institutions of law and order. Law and order without justice are worthless in a democracy. When peaceful demonstrations do not soften the attitude of the government, militant and vigorous tactics might be employed by the militants in order to prevail upon the government. These tactics sometimes come closely to anarchy. At this tense point, a mass movement can travel in one of two directions. If the government concedes to the demands of the people, all well and good. The mass movement falls apart because it has accomplished its objective. On the other hand, if the government refuses the demands of the mass movement, it generally suppresses the rebellion or civil disobedience. When the people continue to rebel, the government continues to suppress, and this condition leads to fascism and dictatorship. There follows mass murder, which is committed in the name of law and order. Dr. Martin Luther King expressed these thoughts before he was assassinated. If conditions do not change soon in this country, we will all have a fascist police state in the 1970s. I don't think that America has the moral strength and will to resolve her racial problem and to avert a fascist takeover. But if rapid, collective, constructive action is taken immediately, we can save the American cities from disaster. If a police state is established in America, this will fulfill the prophecy of Daniel. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found will be written in the book. Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. I want to thank you all for watching this series. I want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank you all for sacrificing some of your time so that you can view this material and get some meat on your head. I really thank you for that. You are the greatest viewers ever, and I thank you. Remember, never ever give up on your dreams, and remember that black on black crime is a felony.